It's episode 32 of the Hodgepodge podcast. I'm your host, Doug.
I'm Dirty A. As the name suggests, we're going to talk about a hodgepodge of topics, anywhere from movies, music, TV, and other pop culture events.
And on this episode, it's all about Batman as we celebrate the Dark Knight's 75th anniversary. Batman! And we are joined this episode, as it deals with one of, if not the most famous comic book character of all time.
Debatable.
We're joined by our good friend, author Matt King.
How's it going?
To talk about all things Batman.
75 years of Batman.
75 years of Batman.
75 long years of Batman.
It takes that long to become the world's greatest detective.
It does. Yes, Batman debuted in March. The cover date was May, but in Detective Comics 27, March 1939, a year after Superman debuted in Action Comics. He's always been Bruce Wayne from the very beginning, but in the beginning he was kind of a, I would say a lot darker. I mean, he killed people and shit, which he doesn't technically do now.
He just puts them to sleep.
Not on purpose.
Yeah, he just puts them to sleep. Yeah, not on purpose. I mean, like, I remember Wizard Magazine had, like, this thing about how screwy Batman was in the early days, and, like, he kicks this guy into, like, a vat of, like, acid, and he's like, a fitting end for his kind. And you're like, damn, Batman.
He was still coming into his own.
Yes.
A form of super dickery.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like private dick, like
right.
detective.
Private dickery.
Well, yeah, they also, I think they also put it in Super Dickery. I think they put some of that stuff in there with the. If the audience listeners don't know what Super Dickery is, in like the 50s, I guess, and the 60s, the DC Comics did a lot of weird covers with Superman, and like they always made him look like a huge dick.
Yeah.
And of course the story inside was always like there was some quote unquote reasonable explanation.
Like Lois is getting abducted by aliens. It's like you get what you that's what you get.
And they did a bunch with Batman as well, because like stuff like that, a fitting end.
Yeah. Then they also did the Batman covers where he was in like the pink suit.
Right. Yeah, the rainbow
Batman.
That was in the 50s. That's when it got real weird. Batman, I've ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved Batman. As I got older, I think when I was like a teenager, Wolverine kind of overtook it. But since the Nolan films came out, Batman's kind of come back to the forefront for me as a favorite comic book character. I still love Wolverine, though, no matter how many robot samurais he fights.
He's so wishy-washy.
I know.
When I was a little kid, I watched the reruns of the 1960s show with...
What's happening?
Yeah.
That's 70s, but no.
That also sounds like the Batman.
A little bit, yeah.
The 1960s TV show starring Adam West and Burt Ward.
Right. The campy,
yes, very campy Batman. So, but when you're a little kid, you're like, man, Batman's awesome!
I love that show.
I do too.
And then when you get older, you're like, this is stupid.
This is
the movie.
Batman the movie.
God.
Yeah. Oh,
with the shark repellent. And
Yeah,
he has the giant bomb, which was kind of an homage in The Dark Knight Rises when he was flying away with the bomb, but in the 60s Batman movie, he's actually carrying a big, he was like Mario in a Mario Brothers game. He's like, oh!
Get out of the way! Yeah, he's running through the crowd with a bomb over his head. You know what my favorite moment was from Campy Batman?
Yeah.
Batman and Robin came up on this crime scene. Somebody had been kidnapped. And where they were sitting before they were kidnapped, there was a bowl of alphabet soup. And so Batman sees it, and he takes off from his utility belt. He takes he had a bat thermos on his belt, and he fills up the bat thermos with the alphabet soup, and then he takes it back to the bat computer and he pours it into the bat computer, and then doot, 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 the bat computer flashes some lights, and then it comes up with a decoded message in the alphabet soup. That gave the location of where this guy was.
That show was so
stupid. And I loved it back in the day.
Absolutely.
My favorite, I wouldn't say my favorite, but like the memory I remember most from that Batman TV show was Vincent Price's Egghead.
Yeah.
And he had the eggs that made them cry. And it was him, and like it was Batman, Robin, and Batgirl. Yeah, excellent. And they're all like, and then that was the end of the episode. And they said, tune in next week. Or actually 5 minutes from now.
No need to exaggerate.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Egghead was one of those villains that they created just for that TV show. Because Two-Face was too scary. They couldn't use him. When when you're a little kid, your parents will sometimes, they'll get like portraits of you and stuff like that, photo portraits. And there's one, and my mom might still have it hanging. There's a portrait of me, and I don't know how old I was, maybe 3 or something like that. And I have, holding with me in the picture, was a Batman. It was like a 12-inch Batman action figure, but it had magnets on the hands. So he was like, he could like climb on the refrigerator and stuff like that. I said, that's how much I love Batman. He got into the Doug portrait.
And we should point out, Doug is wearing a Batman.
I am wearing a Batman t-shirt. Yes.
Today, yeah.
Commemorating 75th anniversary of Batman.
This is like a month-long celebration for Doug.
Apparently, yeah.
It's like his...
It's a year-long celebration.
It's like a Batman Hanukkah.
He should probably wash the shirt sometime.
Maybe.
He stinks.
Yeah. I'll be sitting closer to you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's been through all kinds of... every permutation of media. The most well-known right now, obviously the Nolan movies, but also the video games. The Arkham video games.
Right.
What'd you say?
Porn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did Batman XXX.
Yeah.
With...
what was it called?
I think it was like This Isn't Batman or something like that.
Oh, so not like a porn name parody?
No, because...
It wasn't like Dick Man.
Like Star Wars?
No, because when they do the parodies nowadays, they just call it This Isn't What's It Called. And
so
then
that's how they get around.
That's how they get around it, so it's a parody.
This isn't Batman.
Oh, okay.
So it's a parody, but they made it look exactly like the 60s TV show. It was, like if you watch, they had like a clean trailer for it, and like you watch it, like this really looks good. It's like, and then of course they cut out all the sex. But which is
did he have the nipples on his?
No, because it was the 60s Batman, the claw.
Oh, okay.
So like a porno actress, I think her name was Tori Black. I wouldn't know.
I mean, so I've heard. These
I've
heard.
She was Catwoman. She looked exactly like Julie Newmar, basically. I mean, it was, she looked exactly like her.
Meow.
Yes, Julie Newmar today, kind of scary, but but he's been through like all kinds of permutations. The comics, as you mentioned the Rainbow Batman was in the 50s when DC Comics was going more sci-fi. In the beginning, it was more noir type stuff, and even Superman was kind of like that because he fought a lot of gangsters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then in the 60s, obviously the TV show influenced it, and they became even more goofy. And in the 70s, it started getting darker again. That's when they introduced Ra's al Ghul.
Mm-hmm.
You're a comic book reader. Do you have any favorite Batman story in particular?
No, not really.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. I like to give Doug a hard time because this is his boy.
I'll remember that when we get to the Spider-Man episode.
There's there's The Dark Knight Returns. I think that's pretty much everybody's favorite Batman story. Frank Miller before he went nuts.
I was just going to say, no matter how crazy he got now.
He's batshit crazy. Alan Moore's the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lost his fucking mind.
Yeah.
But, before the insanity, Frank Miller put out The Dark Knight Returns. And it is fantastic. I mean, it has some of the best moments of any Batman story that I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
Him with the Joker, him with Superman. They even quoted it when they did the Batman versus Superman
announcement
at Comic-Con.
Right.
The quote from that.
Harry Lennox.
Yeah, that book. So that's probably my favorite. And there's others like Long Halloween, Hush.
Yeah, Hush was good. Hush gets a bad rap.
I liked Hush. I mean,
because
it was okay.
Because the main draw for that is the Jim Lee art. It was the first time Jim Lee had done a monthly book in forever, and nobody can draw Catwoman like Jim Lee. But it gets a bad rap because it was basically like a greatest hits of the characters, of the villains. But it was a pretty decent story. Yeah. The only problem with Hush that I had was that the guy they just happened to introduce, and you're like, well, that's him. That's the guy. He's the bad guy. It's like they didn't make it like much. It wasn't as big a mystery as I like to think it was.
The old throw mama from the train.
Yeah.
What's the problem with the story? Well, you only had 2 characters, and you killed the first one off on the first page.
No, what happens is there's this guy who is a quote-unquote long-lost friend of Bruce Wayne's, and he comes back into the picture, and all of a sudden, at the same time, a new villain comes on the scene. You're like, So it's like, they tried some little trickery in there, but...
kind of telegraphed.
Yeah, they kind of telegraphed it. But Jim Lee drew it, and his art was incredible. Yeah, Frank Miller, like you were saying, as crazy as he is now, he wrote
a damn good story.
Yeah, he did that. He also did Year One.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up Year One is another favorite of mine.
Yeah.
Love You.
Which is actually more of a Gordon story than it is,
It is.
Batman. But it's a great story. We actually watched Dirty A, and I actually watched the animated adaptation just a couple weeks ago. And you're watching The Dark Knight Returns now.
Mm-hmm.
The collected one, which is long as shit.
Yeah, it's really long.
Yeah, I'd say those are my favorites. Killing Joke's really good too.
I do like Killing Joke. Alan
Alan
Moore
and
again, before he
Brian
went
Baldwin.
crazy.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think when they ask Alan Moore, like he basically is like he writes that up. He's like, oh, I didn't.
Well, he it's like
right.
He basically disowned V for Vendetta.
Oh, he did. I didn't even know he did. I didn't know he disowned that.
Yeah. Well, when the movie was coming out, he's like, I want no part of this.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
So and then he did the same thing when Watchmen came
Yeah.
out, and when they were asking about Killing Joke, he was the same deal.
Yeah.
He's bonkers.
He is.
But he put out a great book way back when.
Yeah. Killing Joke was great.
Yeah, it's kind of short, but
it is. It's about, I think it's like what, 48 pages, something like that.
maybe
It's like a
so.
long form double sized comic or something like that. Yeah. But that was a great. Basically told us the revealed the origin of the Joker, basically, like what his life was like before he became the Joker. They never gave him a name though, and there's elements of it in the Nolan movies. They basically what he does to Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight is what he tries to do to Commissioner Gordon in that book. He tries to drive Commissioner Gordon crazy. Yeah. Because he shoots Batgirl, he paralyzed Batgirl, and that went into the canon. Like that was.
Oh right,
deal.
Batgirl is the daughter.
Right, and then she became Oracle after that. But now they've relaunched New 52, and I think she's Batgirl again. I don't know what the hell's going on. The comics, I never really followed the comics a lot, just because there's just so much. I remember when I really got into comics, I bought Batman for a little while. I had like all of No Man's Land, and I had like part of like the Venom thing that they did in Legends of the Dark Knight, which basically that was like a prequel to introducing Bane.
Yeah.
And Nightfall.
Wait, are you talking about? Oh, Nightfall. Okay.
Yeah. But they did the story in Legends of the Dark Knight Venom, where Batman takes Venom himself, and because he failed saving this little girl, and he finds the super steroid, and then Venom comes back to haunt him when Bane comes to town, and just straight up breaks his back.
Till he finds the magic rope in the prison.
Yes.
The magic rope of healing.
Yes, I know. It's not the greatest moment in that movie. In fact, my buddy and I were talking about it last night, and he goes, the more I think about The Dark Knight Rises, he goes, the harder I am on it. He goes, to be honest, if it wasn't for the last 5 minutes of that movie, the last 5 minutes saved that movie. I'm like, yeah. But see, I like the thing about The Dark Knight Rises that I loved all the performances and everything like that, adding up to it, I mean, Tom Hardy, for Christ's sakes, had to act with only his eyes.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like, and he had to follow Heath Ledger, so it's like, come on.
Yeah. Well, they made him sound like a bored butler, so he's kind of behind the 8 ball. Right?
I don't know what you're talking about, Mad King.
Mr. Word.
Stains on the china.
I'm Mr. Belvedere.
Yeah, that's what he sounded like. It's like the least menacing villain voice.
But you talked about The Dark Knight Returns,
Yep.
Which was when 50-year-old Batman comes out of retirement, and they kind of borrowed that for Dark Knight Rises too, which is one of the problems with Dark Knight Rises. There's too many comic book stories they try to stuff in there, and Dark Knight Returns was one of them. And that basically really ushered in, along with Watchmen, really ushered in grim and gritty into the comic books, and then Batman became a lot darker. The Wolverine, that's when he started to flourish over at Marvel. That led into the first serious movie about Batman, Tim Burton's 1989 Batman.
So I still love it.
Yep.
It's a good movie. The problems I had with it were the liberties he took with Batman himself, like the origin. Like, the fact that the Joker ends up being responsible for
that's a little much. But.
Then he's a 30-year-old Batman beating up a 50-year-old Joker.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Batman, ease up, okay? He's got to take his pills. But Jack Nicholson was great. I mean, he was great as the Joker.
I was surprised at Keaton.
Keaton was really good.
I thought that was, when it was first announced, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I thought it was terrible casting.
Yeah, Mr. Mom is Batman.
And then he knocked that shit out of the park.
He did a great job. The only thing with him that, and this is what I liked so much about Christian Bale's performance, is that Christian Bale made Bruce Wayne the smarmy jerk,
Right.
Whereas Keaton made him really weird.
Yeah, he just
So, like,
he was more just
eccentric.
odd,
Yeah, but like,
but not a womanizing asshole.
Right. But if it was me, I'd be like, I think that weird guy's Batman.
Yeah.
I was like, where's Christian Bale?
That weird recluse who's walking down the alley with flowers.
I think he's
I
Batman.
think that might be Batman.
But overall, I mean, the first Batman's good. It's infinitely quotable. You are my number one guy.
Hey, Cart. Think about the future.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And all the Prince music. I mean, let's not forget.
Yeah, Prince did the whole soundtrack for that movie. Bat Dance and Party Man and Trust.
Trust.
Hubba, hubba, hubba. Money, money, money. Who do you trust?
Me? I'm giving out free money. And where is the Batman?
The one bad thing about that movie, though, and it's probably because Jack Nicholson said, I will never do a sequel to this movie, is that started off the villain's got to die at the end of the movie thing.
Yeah.
And that really kind of painted them into a corner as they got later into that series. The next one was...
Right. They looked at it more as... Back then, they only focused on solo projects.
Right.
They weren't looking at the broader picture.
Right. And then they did Batman Returns, which was actually darker. And Batman does kill people.
Yeah, it was darker. Yeah.
He stuck dynamite in that guy's belt
and then pushes him down a manhole and shit.
I don't kill people.
I don't kill people.
Yeah, you do.
Except for this random guy who I just pushed in a manhole with dynamite.
The problem I had, and the Batman Returns, like, you watch that, there's parts of it that are good, and then parts of it that are infinitely stupid. Michelle Pfeiffer was great as Catwoman.
Yes.
Her origin was utterly ridiculous.
Crazy.
The Penguin, Danny DeVito, for what they gave him, I thought he did a good job.
He was fine, but again, that was just like Joker. That was solely Tim Burton's Penguin. I mean, Penguin's a dapper, good-looking guy by all accounts. Not
good looking.
But he's not a
refined. He's more refined. Yeah,
is a better word. He's not a. He doesn't have fucking flippers for him.
No, he doesn't. And the real villain in that movie is fucking Christopher Walken.
And I didn't buy that at all. I didn't like his character.
Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed as Batman?
That movie had a lot of problems, but it's still fun to watch every now and again.
Yeah.
But the first one, I'll pop in anytime.
Yeah, the first one was infinitely better, I thought. Although I did like the posters for the second one, like when they had the bat symbol, the bat's symbol, and then like they had the snow like getting blown off of it, and then the one picture which was like the three of them, Bat, Cat, and Penguin.
The kind of side shot of it with black, and then
it was like a black on the sides, and there was just the three of them right down the middle. I thought that was a cool poster. Yeah. We don't have to talk about the Schumacher movies because they're god awful.
What you should watch though. Well, first of all, yes, they're terrible. But you should watch the director's commentary on...
I've heard about that.
On Batman and Robin.
Oh my God, I've heard about that.
Where they interviewed the cast of the after the years after the movie had been out.
Okay.
And they interviewed...
This is like a special edition release of some kind?
It's probably on the Blu-ray right now.
So they interviewed it, or on YouTube. So they interviewed Schumacher.
Yeah, I'm not paying for that shit.
Yeah, no, nobody should.
Well, if I was going to get the original Batman on Blu-ray, I think you kind of have to buy in a collection these days.
So they interviewed Schumacher and George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell and everybody who was in that movie, and every one of them basically is apologizing for making the movie. And Schumacher especially is like, this is on me. This is my, this was my movie, my choices.
We know.
Yeah, we know, asshole. You killed comic book movies for years.
And they interviewed Schwarzenegger as part of it. And he was like,
it was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah. Oh God.
Go see Sabotage.
Schwarzenegger told the story of how he got the role in that movie, which was Schumacher came to him and said, "I want you to be Mr. Freeze, and if you're not Mr. Freeze, then I'm not making this movie." And that's how he pitched the role to him. And he was like, I could not let him make this movie, so I just did it.
Didn't they originally want Patrick Stewart to do it?
Oh, I don't know.
Isn't that a rumor?
Mr. Freeze?
To do Mr. Freeze?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I never heard
because that ties in.
Well, not according to Schumacher.
Right.
Schumacher was like, this was my guy. If I didn't get him, I'm quitting.
Right. And George Clooney has always taken the blame.
Imagine if that had happened.
Oh God.
Well, see, George Clooney has always taken responsibility for the Batman and Robin, and it wasn't really his fault. They just told him to basically do George Clooney as Batman.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean, how cool can you look holding out the back credit card?
All that's on Schumacher.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, George Clooney. If you're just going based on just the man and the cowl, George Clooney looks the best of all of them because he's got the chin to support it.
Have you seen the supercut of Clooney doing the head shake whenever he's Batman?
No.
It's like, this thing, whenever, his head moves side to side right as he's speaking in that movie.
Well, apparently that's all you could move.
He said if Batman existed and was wearing that suit, he'd get his ass kicked every day.
He'd be like that fucking kid in A Christmas Story. Just pushing down.
But Batman Returns, we talked about this when we did our cartoon podcast, led into what I feel is the greatest incarnation of Batman out there. And it's Batman the Animated Series. Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and those guys, and Alan Burnett working with Warner Brothers Animation. That's where the Patrick Stewart thing comes from, because Mr. Freeze in the cartoon, he's not voiced by Patrick Stewart, but he looks like Patrick Stewart basically. Okay. I mean, he looks like basically you played Arkham City. I mean, that's taken from the cartoon. Okay. All right. All the Arkham City, like a lot of the voices and stuff like that, are all taken from the cartoon.
Yeah, as we talked about, I never watched the animated series for some reason.
But you had Kevin Conroy, who is Batman. Everybody who reads a Batman comic or whatever has his voice in their head. Mark Hamill was brilliant as the Joker. Paul Williams, who was on the Daft Punk album last year.
Yes, he was.
He was Penguin. Richard Mall from Night Court.
Nice.
He was Harvey Dent.
What was his name on Night Court?
Bull. He was Harvey Dent and Two-Face on the cartoon. Huh. Yeah, he was Two-Face.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Isn't he dead?
No. Richard Mall's still alive.
Okay.
He was Two-Face.
Shouldn't he be dead? He's really tall.
Nice. Nice. You're going to Andre the Giant him.
Yeah.
The initial designs for the cartoon, for some of the characters, especially Penguin and Catwoman, were taken straight from Batman Returns. Penguin had flippers. He wasn't as disgusting as he was in the movie. Yeah. He was still dapper, but he had the flippers. And then Catwoman had blonde hair as opposed to black hair like she's had forever in the comic books. After the Superman cartoon had come out, they redesigned it. Then they had her go back to the short black hair that she has, and they changed up some of the characters. They made them a little bit more stylistic, I would say. Like the Joker had no eyes anymore. Like he just had black dots for his eyes, and it's a great cartoon. It's so good, and it's very adult too. And that eventually obviously led into the Justice League cartoon, which a lot of people
my
see.
favorite.
Oh yeah, you love Justice League, yeah. Justice League's great. I mean, Justice League is really, really good. Mm-hmm. I just love the Batman because of what they did with like Mr. Freeze was a joke before they did that episode Heart of Ice, and and how they really played out the Two-Face thing. Like he was Harvey Dent for several episodes before he became Two-Face, and the two-parter could be. It's just they just treated it so seriously, and it was and that was also what we talked about. That was actually the general audience's first introduction to Ra's al Ghul, basically, because nobody really knew who he was from the comics, and look what happened to him in the Nolan movies. But animated series, if you can definitely check that out, check it out. It's really good, and there's also a really good book out there that has about the animated series. And it's and Bruce Timm, and actually they're
doing another one.
Yeah, they're doing a short that comes out this week. I think it's tomorrow for the 75th anniversary, and I think it's based on one of the old Bob Kane, Bill Finger comics. And we should mention that. I should have mentioned that at the start. Bob Kane is credited as the creator of Batman, but it really is Bob Kane and Bill Finger, who was his writer, who came up with a lot of the design ideas for Batman and stuff like that. Bob Kane never gave him the credit, which is horseshit. And Jerry Robinson also did a lot of stuff too, as far as like the Joker and stuff like that. He gave Bill Finger the finger. Nice ass. So, but that's how it was in those days, just like Stan Lee. Stan Lee is basically, he did everything for Marvel Universe, and Jack Kirby did quite a lot. Yeah. So, kiss it, Stan Lee.
Yeah, they started crediting Kirby a lot more now.
Yes and
not
no.
as much.
Yes and no.
But given what they used to.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
not. I mean.
Yeah.
And Kirby was bitter, man.
He was.
Oh
Didn't he?
He was.
Right?
Yeah, he was. I read this article. It was an interview with Kirby, and he was talking about Stan Lee, and just went off about how Stan Lee had no talent. Stan Lee didn't do any of that stuff that he's credited for, and it was all Kirby. Which, from Kirby's point of view, maybe that's not surprising.
It's a little self-serving.
A little self-serving, but
I mean, John Byrne said a lot of the same stuff about Chris Claremont. I think after the dissolution of their partnership on X-Men.
Yeah. So it sounds like the same thing with Bob Kane.
Yeah. Yeah, Bill Finger. Yeah.
Whoever that is.
Nice. I mean, even to this day, like all Batman stuff says created by Bob Kane, but you need to add Bill Finger in there. Actually, when they did, when whoever did that True Detective parody, the True Dark Knight, they actually at the end of it they put created by Bill Finger, and people a lot of comic book nerds are like, yeah, nice, yeah, do that. Fuck that Bob Kane guy.
I think it was this. I think it might have been this Winter Soldier where it says characters created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. I think they put their name together on that one. I think.
Yeah, they may have. But I mean, but Captain America was created by Joe Simon.
No, I know. But Marvel characters.
Who else created? It was just Joe Simon, wasn't it? Oh no, was it Kirby and Joe Simon?
I don't remember if Kirby had his hand in Captain America.
I can't remember either. I don't know. This is about Batman.
Anyway,
back to Batman.
But also after the animated series, they also did the Batman Beyond show,
which I love Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond's pretty cool.
I want to see a Batman Beyond movie.
They talked about doing it before they did Batman Begins. They were going to do Batman Beyond, and then something happened, and then they didn't do it.
Well, I was kind of hoping after the Dark Knight trilogy ended that we might that would be a good time to give us to give us a break from Batman, because we've now had it's X number of Batman.
Yeah, just terrible Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
And
at that point,
and just skip ahead and give us the future Batman. Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe I don't think they're going to do that anymore. Like now that they've got Ben Affleck in the role, but he's no spring chicken. So
no, he's not. He's not.
Which is one of my kind of gripes with this whole casting situation. Not necessarily Ben Affleck himself, who up until Argo, I would say he and Sandra Bullock were the two people in Hollywood that I could not stand to watch in a movie. I could not stand them. And then I saw Argo, and I thought, okay, I might be okay with watching Ben Affleck in a role.
Yeah,
he was really good in Argo.
Yeah, he was.
Then they announced him for Batman and Batman versus Superman with Wonder Woman and possibly Green Lantern and who else.
Yeah, well, I think he'll do all right.
I'm sure he'll do fine.
His calling is definitely directing.
Well, yeah.
But
he's very good at that. But it's not that I don't think he'll be a good Batman. It's that I don't like the fact that they're starting with a 50-year-old Batman for an entire universe that they're trying to kickstart.
Right.
And they have a younger Superman.
It's an awkward thing, yeah.
So it's curious that they would go older with Batman.
It's going to be interesting.
They'll Benjamin Button.
Because to be honest, and I think what everyone's assuming is that they're going to play off the end of Man of Steel, where there was all this destruction and all this crap going on, and Batman is basically going to come in and mentor him. But you still could have done that if he was like a 30-year-old Batman and just been at it for like 5 years or something like that. And he says, "Look, this is what you got to do, man."
It's the same deal, yeah. It doesn't.
Yeah,
you don't have to play a father figure.
Or even if he's not a mentor, if he's coming to investigate this new threat, that he sees as a threat.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be 45 or 50 to be able to do that.
No, he doesn't.
And I just think it's ridiculous that they're starting with a guy who's 5 years away from getting his AARP card.
It's a little odd for the universe.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. But, Affleck, I think will be good. I don't have a problem.
No, I think he'll be all right.
Him playing the role. It's
kind of puzzling.
I wish they hadn't gone that direction. Maybe they thought they couldn't go younger because everybody would want Christian Bale. I don't know.
Maybe.
Trying to distance himself from Bale a little bit.
Maybe. But I would have gone the other direction.
Well, that's a good segue into, after Batman and Robin, which you mentioned, basically destroyed not just Batman, but comic book movies in general.
Yeah. And
they really, Blade kind of slowly resurrected it a little bit, but Blade it's such a nothing character that nobody knows.
Yeah. I think a lot of people just took Blade for a vampire movie.
Right. It wasn't really until X-Men in 2000.
Spider-Man.
And then Spider-Man the next year.
Yeah.
Was it 2 years? Was it 2002? I always get messed up.
I think you're right. I think it might be 2000. Or wait, was that Spider-Man 2?
Spider-Man 2 was definitely 2004, I think.
Okay.
So maybe was it 2001 or was it 2002?
Anyway.
Because I think it was 2002 because they had that promo with the Twin Towers and then they took it out as soon as 9/11 happened.
That's right.
Which is that was a really, really cool trailer. That was really cool. I loved that trailer. I was sad that they took it out because it was so cool. But yeah, I mean, Schumacher basically destroyed comic book movies for a little while there.
Yet another reason to love that guy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he did do Phone Booth, which was alright, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. But then they were going to do Darren Aronofsky was going to do a Batman movie, and it was going to be based on year one, but different, and it was going to be. It was really weird.
He keeps flirting with
comic books.
Books.
He does.
Like,
I'm in. No, I'm out.
And no, the one he just did, they did a graphic novel for that as well.
Yeah.
To go with the movie. But then he dropped out of it, and it's good because if you go online, just go online and look up Aronofsky's Batman, and you'll be like, "What the fuck?" It's like Alfred was like a mechanic called Big Al or something like that, and he raises Bruce. It's fucking stupid. Like he was going to work with Frank Miller on it, and this is post crazy Frank Miller.
Yeah.
But then they got Christopher Nolan involved, and he teamed up with David Goyer, and they wrote the story they were calling it Intimidation Game for a little while, and then it became Batman Begins, and they cast Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne and Batman, and a whole cavalcade of stars in supporting roles. Mike O'Kane as Alfred, Morgan Freeman's in it, Lucius Fox, and then you've got
Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
He's not in it at all.
I'm thinking of the dude that plays the Scarecrow.
That cold's going to your head.
Oh, yeah.
Cillian Murphy.
Yeah. Cillian Murphy, that's him.
And then you have, no offense to Ben McKenzie, you have the greatest Commissioner Gordon ever in Gary Oldman.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
I almost wish they had just said, "Can you please come do this TV show for us, please?" But instead they got the kid from the OC and Southland. But he was really good in Southland. I'm giving him a hard time, but he was really good in Southland.
Don't forget Katie Holmes.
And Katie Holmes was in it. And you know what? A lot of people hate Katie Holmes.
I don't hate Katie Holmes.
I don't hate Katie Holmes.
No, she had that Scientology glow. In that movie.
I thought she was fine in that movie.
She was fine.
She was fine.
Whatever.
She was okay.
And just because her husband at the time,
she was going to stand out.
And just because her husband at the time made her turn down one of the biggest movies of all time after that, so she could go do Mad Money with Diane Keaton and Queen Latifah,
Christ.
I'm sure she's not regretting that for the rest of her life.
Right.
Batman Begins, we talked about it a little bit on the Captain America episode. A solid movie for Warner Brothers, but it didn't do gangbusters. It kind of found new life on DVD, and then, but it made enough that they were like, let's do a sequel.
It was a game changer.
And it told the origin story of Batman, not just that his parents were killed, but how he actually became Batman. Grounded it in kind of a hyper reality. I loved Batman Begins. I thought it was great. There's the end is obviously a little bit comic booky, but it's a comic book movie.
I'm okay.
So what are you gonna do?
See, I thought the beginning of Batman Begins kind of boring. The whole time where he's climbing around the mountains and the whole thing with Ra's al Ghul and all that. It was like, okay, it's an origin story, so let's just get through with all that.
Right.
And once he becomes Batman, I get way more interested in the story.
Right.
And I loved the second half of that movie. So in the end, it was good.
Right.
It was not my favorite.
Right.
But then comes the big boy.
And then in 2008, Nolan and Christian Bale reteamed, and they did The Dark Knight, where they brought in Heath Ledger as the Joker. And that was another case of casting where everybody was like screaming bloody murder when he got cast. So like, how you get the guy from Brokeback Mountain to be Joker?
A Night's Tale!
And, yeah, exactly. 10 Things I Hate About You. Mm-hmm. And
James got a gun.
Basically, what happened when he came on screen as the Joker, people were like, Jack Nicholson who?
Yeah.
He made everybody forget about that movie from 1989. He just knocked it out of the park. And, of course, sadly, he passed away right before the movie came out, January of that year. My friend, who I always talk about movies with back home and everything, that he's like, at the time, he's like, I thought it was a hoax. Like he thought there was like some kind of like marketing hoax for the movie. He's like, it'd be awesome if he came back to life. He's like, that'd be awesome.
That's what characters do,
right? Unfortunately, it wasn't the case. But The Dark Knight was amazing. It honestly, when I saw it the first time, I went to the midnight showing, and my expectations were through the roof because I loved Batman Begins so much. And after I saw it the first time, I was actually a little bit disappointed. Then I went to go see it a second time, and it just got better. And it got better and better with each. I was out of work I was on unemployment that year, I went and saw that movie, I think, like 8 times in the theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam footing the bill.
Thanks, America.
Thanks, Obama.
This is one of those comic book movies where it stopped being a good comic book movie, and it was just a great movie.
Yeah.
All the other ones previous were like, this is a pretty good comic book movie.
Yeah.
But this one was just a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, it changed the definition of comic book movies.
Yeah.
I think what I said, I said this after we saw Avengers. I said, The Dark Knight is still the greatest quote-unquote superhero movie. I said, but The Avengers is the greatest comic book movie because The Avengers embraced everything about the comic books and still made it work. Whereas The Dark Knight with Nolan, he made it a departure from that. I was saying to my friend, I was like, if DC had a Kevin Feige, like we were talking about in the last episode, if they had a Kevin Feige, they might not have gone the Nolan way because they might have said that hedge is too far away from the comic books. But then you would have gotten a Superman.
Well, it's just a self-contained world,
right?
And there are no other heroes that could exist in that world.
Well, yeah,
from the DC universe,
right,
pretty much.
Right,
so,
right.
He wasn't leaving the door open for like a DCU.
Right, no, he wasn't. Right, no. He really wasn't.
None of that could exist, basically, in Nolan's world.
And I think he did that on purpose because I don't think he wanted that job.
No, he wanted his book of the Batman closed. He was done.
Yeah, I think it was it was a horrible tragedy that Heath Ledger died, and with his death, I think it took the air out of that series, and it felt almost a little bit like in The Dark Knight Rises, like he was like, all right, fine, I'll make your third goddamn movie, all right? It's like
it did kind of have that feeling to it, yeah.
It was him saying, okay, here's the end of the story.
Well, because it
was supposed to have Joker in it, but whatever.
Exactly, because they said, and then eventually they told Harvey Dent's whole story in The Dark Knight, but originally they said they conceived it as he would turn into Two-Face at the end of Dark Knight, and then Two-Face would be the villain in the third one. Right. But then they self-contained it in The Dark Knight, and then he admitted that yes, Joker was supposed to be in the third one as well. Yeah. And then you're right, it did. Film Crit Hulk, that website. You don't know this? Film Crit Hulk. He's like he's a film critique guy who clearly has a lot of education on film studies and stuff like that. But he writes as the Hulk, and he writes in all caps. He's like, Hulk liked this movie because, but it's really insightful stuff. And he said pretty much the same thing about The Dark Knight Rises. He says, I don't think Christopher Nolan wanted to make this movie, and that's why it feels off compared to the other two, because he just was like, all right, I'll tie it up, whatever, good. But he really didn't want to his heart wasn't in that movie. Yeah. And then obviously, I mean, after The Dark Knight, Warner Brothers gave him a blank check, and then he made Inception. Yeah. So, but The Dark Knight was just fantastic. Yeah. Great film. Dark Knight Rises, a lot of people have their problems with it. I have problems with it. Yeah, but it's fine. In the end, to me, it's the worst one of the three of them, but there are parts of it that I absolutely loved. I thought Anne Hathaway was fantastic as Catwoman.
You were always working on
Well, no, it's not just that, because like people, I mean, it was another case of people being like, "Oh, Princess Diaries? Are you kidding me?"
And she was good. I'm just
messing with her. I never had a problem with Anne Hathaway. It was after I watched the movie, and we talked about this. Yeah. The problem with that movie is that it had one too many sort of secondary characters. Yeah. I think you look at Catwoman, Bane, and Talia. Yeah. Right. And take one of them out, and that movie is so much better. Yeah. And in my opinion, as much as I loved Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, I think you take Catwoman out of that movie, and it's a much better movie. Because I think it ties. I mean, it ties up his story that he started in Batman Begins.
Right. She doesn't serve any big plot points in that movie, other than at the end, let me go help you. I'm going to change my mind and help you.
Yeah. Or here's another idea. Or
having dinner with him.
I mean, I know how they did. I know how they did the whole thing with John Blake and stuff like that. But you also could have taken out John Blake and made her the sidekick character as well. They could have done that as well. Yeah. And then kind of turning her away from crime, because in the comics she's kind of like
She's a gray character.
She's very gray, but she's been leaning more towards hero, I think, lately. Well, maybe not now, New 52, but
I love Anne Hathaway was great. Yeah, I just don't think her character was necessary, and I think it actually dragged down the movie because it felt like it should have come full circle with the whole Talia and Ra's al Ghul thing.
I could see that. Yeah.
And I feel like that aspect of it was not as powerful because there wasn't that much of a connection between Bruce and Talia, or Bruce and whatever her name was.
Selena.
Talking about
like she came onto the screen as first in that movie. She wasn't Talia.
Miranda Tate.
Miranda Tate, yeah. So there was supposedly this romance between them, but we didn't get very much of it. And when there's not that sort of connection that the audience feels with a romance,
right?
To tear it apart, we don't feel anything,
right?
Because we're not connected to it. We don't care about this, the connection between these two characters. So it took away from the ending to have Catwoman sort of, siphon off some of that.
See, if they were going to go the whole romance route and all that stuff, then I would have said you take Bane out. You take Bane out, you leave Catwoman and Talia, and then it's basically like they fight over his soul, basically.
Bane,
oh no, I liked Bane. I thought Bane was
a good choice.
He was a more of a plot driver.
Yeah, it was,
got shit done.
His voice aside.
Yeah, right.
I love the way he fought in the movie. He was really
he was
powerful.
great. Yeah.
It kind of sucked that he was like a foot shorter than Christian Bale at times. It looked like it anyway.
He's supposed to be
this huge powerful guy.
He's supposed to be massive, like in the game.
Christian or in Nolan's world, you're not going to get a 7 foot tall.
Agreed, but you still could get.
You could get somebody taller than Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
I mean, he got big for the role.
He did,
but he's big for Tom Hardy.
Big for Tom Hardy. So they had to do all these
sort of weird
cameras. They could have done The Rock. Boy, that would have been great.
Well, wouldn't that have
been do you smell what Bane's cooking? No, he wouldn't wear the mask. No, Rock doesn't wear the mask.
He would hide his pretty face.
That was one thing I hated at the end of that movie. It bugged me a lot throughout this series like this, but when she stabbed him, and he's essentially dead to them. Pull off his fucking mask. Why don't you even consider pulling off his mask? You want to know who he is. Like, that would be the first thing I do. I'd be like, let's see what's under this bitch.
Don't they know who?
Well, they knew who he was. At that point they knew who he was.
Bane did?
Oh yeah, Bane says to him when they're in the.
You're right.
That's how Catwoman finds out because he goes, "Isn't that right, Mr. Wayne?" And then she's like, "What?
Let us not hide behind formality, Mr. Wayne."
Right, exactly.
Right. He does say that in the final.
Right.
In the final fight. Yeah.
But the other thing I think they should have done then with the Talia thing, with the romance thing, is that they should have. I always wanted to see them somehow work in some scientific Lazarus pit thing and have Ra's al Ghul actually come back for real. Yeah. And then it's like she really does love Bruce Wayne. She doesn't want to, betray him, and then the father comes in and, that would have been cool too if they did something like that.
Yeah.
Because for the video game they kind of made it a little more scientific with Lazarus.
Yeah.
But
nice,
but overall, I mean, The Dark Knight Rises, it's like my buddy said, the last 5 minutes basically saves the movie. I still get choked up when he has his moment with Commissioner Gordon at the very end before he goes and flies that bomb off.
What's he say? Like, hope it's...
Thanks for putting the jacket on.
Give a little boy a jacket. Like, you son of a bitch, just tell him who you are. Everyone will know. Everyone will know in a month when Bruce Wayne is not here. And they're like, wait a second, Batman blew up, and now where's Bruce Wayne?
That's actually a little callback to the comics too, because when they did No Man's Land, he was going to reveal his identity to Commissioner Gordon, and Commissioner Gordon was like, "No, don't put the mask back on." He's like, "I don't want to know who you are for real." Like, he goes, "I just, you're Batman, basically." So that was a little bit of a callback to that as well, because that was one of the 8 comic book stories that they cannibalized from Dark Knight Rises.
One of the things that bothered me about that movie was that it, of course, if you put Bane in a movie, you're going to have to do the Nightfall.
Yeah, exactly.
And that, I mean, the scene in Nightfall is where Bane breaks
his back.
Right.
It's a huge moment in the comic.
Uh-huh.
And in the movie, it felt like it just kind of...
it just happened.
It just happened.
Yeah.
It was like a
You're right.
a move that
it was just a move as part of the fight, and it's over before you even realize it.
Yeah, and it's like he
straight up broke his back.
Because he's talking while he's doing it, and then he like breaks his back, and then he falls on the floor, and that's the end of that. There was no, dramatic music going on when it happened. Nothing. It was just...
Well, that was a stylistic choice that they made. There was no music at all in that scene.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying I thought it was a poor choice. For such a huge moment.
That crack was pretty brutal, though.
But
people were like, "Ooh, Batman."
I can think of thumb wrestling.
I get his point. That wasn't epic. It wasn't the epic
Right.
thing.
I mean, it's supposed to be this huge moment, and in that movie, at that moment,
Right.
it just felt like, it was like
and
a
then
punch.
cue the Rocky like montage as he gets better.
If they,
Give me the rope.
Give me the rope.
If they kept the movie the way they had it, I would have liked them to have split it into two different movies and had it the back break be the end of the first movie, and then
you want to Harry Potter it.
Yeah,
I would have Harry Pottered
same
it.
thing,
Yeah. I would have Harry Pottered it. Yeah.
The
The difference between that movie and some other movies is that there actually was material there they could have added to flesh it out,
as opposed to say Mockingjay.
Yeah, exactly.
And The Hobbit.
Yeah, The Hobbit. 3 movies over 300
like
page book.
250, 300 page book. We're gonna make 2 3-hour movies out of it.
Oh Jesus!
3.
The Hobbit's case 3.
The Hobbit. God.
Oh, you're talking about Mockingjay.
Yeah, Mockingjay.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
They called that movie "The Desolation of Smog." He's in it the last 20 minutes of the whole goddamn 3 hours of the movie.
I still haven't seen it, so
Don't worry about it.
You're not missing much.
Did you read the book? You already saw it.
Have you seen the Seven Dwarfs like whistle while they walking in the mines? There you go.
So now Nolan he's left Batman.
Yep.
Christian Bale's left Batman because he said he would only do it again if Christopher Nolan came back. Of course, that gives people hope that they actually would do The Dark Knight Returns. They never will.
They never will.
Because they basically did it in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
So now, as you mentioned earlier, Ben Affleck is now going to become
Ben Affleck. Yeah.
Bella Fleck, the guitar player.
Batfleck.
Batfleck. He's going to be Batman in the new Batman Superman movie, and probably at least one future Batman movie.
If he can make it.
If he can make it.
God willing, my knees hold up.
And, I'm sure he'll be fine. But I'm like you. I don't know how they're going to build a universe out of that. Maybe Joseph Gordon-Levitt will come back and be like, hey, I can be Batman!
There was some talk about, before the Affleck announcement, that he, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was going to be Batman. It was going to be a continuation of it.
Yeah, like a just more of a wink nod to the...
Well, no, I mean, it would connect the movies. And
it would connect them, yeah.
So no superheroes or anything like that existed in Nolan's world, but now that this alien God has come down, now everything's changed.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen, and we have Ben Affleck.
Yeah. I don't know why. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway.
There's always the big paradox of Batman. Almost any superhero, really. It's like they never really have anything to fight until they show up, and then all the fucking supervillains show up. Like you're hardly even fighting anything until...
That's interesting you say that, because that's a good segue to talk about this new show they're going to do, this Gotham show.
Right.
It's going to be on Fox starting this fall, right? Because they're shooting the pilot now. So it'll be this fall, and Fox has already greenlit it as
it's
like they did a pilot. They're doing a pilot, but it's not really a pilot because they already greenlit it. It's a series.
They know it's gonna have an audience.
And this series has gone through several descriptions in the lead up to what we know what it is now. Originally, it was supposed to be just like a Jim Gordon show about the cops. Then all of a sudden they're saying now, Bruce Wayne's in it, but he's just a little boy. He's like 12 years old, and Alfred's in it. And then here come all the villains. Yeah. Younger versions of the villains, because that's always a great idea. Yeah. And you've got, I saw the Penguin. The guy looks like the Penguin. He looks good. I mean, he's got the he does. He's got the crazy haircut. He's got the pointy nose. Haircut. Yeah. Pointy nose, and he looks dapper. He looks good. He looks the part, but they also have 14-year-old Catwoman, because, we need to see that. And again, the girl's cute. I don't know why she's wearing fishnet stockings. That's kind of over-sexualizing a 14-year-old, which is kind of gross.
So she's kind of she looks a little bit like Pfeiffer.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit. And, and then now they're saying there's going to be Riddler in it, and it's just like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. They're CWing.
Yes.
Gotham.
Yeah. And Ben McKenzie, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be playing Jim Gordon. And Jada Pinkett Smith is in it.
Yeah.
Is she Amanda Waller?
No, she plays a crime boss. She's basically the Penguin's boss before he becomes the Penguin. I'm just praying to God that they don't do Joker, because the whole thing about Joker is that Batman created Joker. Not in Nolan's universe, but literally Batman created Joker because he dropped him into the vat of toxic waste. And he was the Red Hood and then became Joker. Right. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'll watch it because I watch Arrow. Arrow's good. I mean, the first season was okay for Arrow, and the second season's just been fantastic. And they drop all kinds of DC universe hints and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
they just introduced Suicide Squad.
Yeah, Suicide Squad was a couple episodes ago,
Mhm.
and Deathstroke's in it now,
Yep.
and he's fully into it. So we'll see what this does. It would be interesting, although I doubt they're going to do this. It would be interesting if this Gotham show basically fed into future Batman movies.
Yeah.
Of course, you're not going to get Ben McKenzie to play Jim Gordon.
I
with
agree.
Ben Affleck.
It's going to be a better show if they just focus on a procedural crime type of drama,
Right.
As opposed to comic booky stuff. I mean, if you want to have these Riddler walk on and have some brief appearance, but that's not going to happen.
No, I think he's like
star,
forensic
right?
or something like that.
And that's a problem. Like if you want to give some little wink and nods to, future shit that's going to happen, but they should have just focused on it as a fucking dark cop series.
Yeah, with Gordon and Harvey Bullock.
Fucking NYPD Blue.
You should have made it Flash though. You should have made it Flash from Batman Begins in year one. That would have been even better. But then he would have been too much of a bad guy. And Donald Logue is great. I can't wait to see him.
Oh man, yeah,
I love Donald
him.
Logue.
He's awesome.
But
and he looks great.
Yeah, he looks good. Yeah. Because they release a bunch of character photos. I'll put them on for the podcast.
He's got that scruffy.
Yeah, and he's got
scruffy look.
the leather trench coat. I don't know what that's all about, but he's very stylish. And the other thing that Batman has kind of dominated recently are video games with the Arkham games.
Yeah, great games.
Yep.
The Arkham Asylum was the first one. I forget what year that came out. 2010? 2009 maybe?
It's in the ballpark. Yeah.
And then it was kind of like the Nolan movies. It kind of blew it open with the second one, which was Arkham City, where you could actually go around. Basically, part of Gotham City was turned into a prison for all the crazies, and then they divvied up the territory. Arkham City the script was written by Paul Dini from the animated series, and it's one of the greatest Batman stories you'll ever see or play or read. It's great how all the villains kind of intertwined, and the story made sense. Like all the motivations made sense. It didn't feel like it was just like here's so and so and here's so and so. Like it all made sense. I would say the only one that was kind of throwaway was maybe Solomon Grundy, but that was a cool fight though.
Yeah.
You got to play as Catwoman in that one.
Yep.
And she was suitably sexy. And you had Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill reprising their roles from the animated series to play Batman and Joker. Won't ruin the ending for you if you've never played it. You should play it. Just as a Batman story. It's great. But there's a very huge twist at the end.
Yeah.
And then that was made by Rocksteady Studios.
Mm-hmm.
And Warner Brothers, a couple years later after Arkham City, did Arkham Origins, where they got a different guy to play Batman. He sounds enough like Kevin Conroy. Same with the Joker. Yeah, it was a prequel, and the guy who plays Joker sounds a lot like the Mark Hamill Joker. And all that was a bunch of smokescreen because now they revealed they're coming out with Arkham Knight, which is by Rocksteady. Yep. It's going to be next generation only for PS4 and Xbox
I don't
One.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I'm going to pay $500 just for a video game.
Yeah.
They brought back Kevin Conroy to play Batman in this one. It looks cool.
It does look cool.
The cutscene they showed.
They always look great.
Fantastic.
They always one up themselves in these games. They're phenomenal.
Arkham Knight is actually a character in the story. They claim he's an original character. There's a lot of speculation online that he's possibly Azrael, or possibly even Jason Todd from Batman's past. Those of you who don't know, Jason Todd was the second Robin. Dick Grayson was the first Robin. He became Nightwing, and then Jason Todd was the second Robin, and he actually died at the hands of the Joker until they brought him back to life in the comic books as Red Hood, and now he's Red Robin, I guess.
Is he?
Yum. I forget who he is now in the comics. Maybe he's still Red Hood.
What was the excuse for bringing, or how did they bring him back from the dead?
Well, I think what happened was when they did Hush, and they faked it out that Clayface faked him out that he was Jason Todd to come back to life. That gave them the idea, oh, we could do this and make it work. And that kind of gave him the idea. He basically, I think he used the Lazarus Pit. Somebody took him and put him in the Lazarus Pit. I think it might have actually been Ra's al Ghul. Put him in the Lazarus Pit. And
he had the amulet.
Right.
And brought him back to life. And then he became the Red Hood, and he became like a vigilante who killed, which was a story that they had done multiple times in Batman, the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you pointed out, he's 75 years old, and
Yeah.
stories are going to repeat. Unless you want to continue doing rainbow uniform Batman.
They can bring it back.
They
Sure.
should.
It could work.
Grant Morrison, he brought back a lot of that crazy stuff when he did his run on Batman. He brought in a lot of he tried to justify all the crazy shit from the Silver Age, because what happened was all the stuff that happened prior in DC Comics, what happened prior to 1986, or was it 87?
You're talking about Crisis?
Crisis, yeah. Everything happened that was basically nullified by this event called Crisis, and then they rebooted the whole universe, and then that's when they did Batman Year One, and John Byrne did Man of Steel, the comic book, and it basically rebooted all their characters, and then they recently did that again, with New 52. Marvel has never done that.
Well, their version of it was to just break off and do an entire new universe,
Right, the Ultimate Universe
with the same
right.
characters but with different characterizations. And
They were,
and by that I mean everyone is an asshole.
They were in Avengers, in Ultimates.
Yeah, in the Ultimates.
I mean,
every member of the Avengers or the Ultimates is a fucking jerk. I mean, they're all awful.
That's because it was written by Mark Miller.
Yeah.
Um,
Captain America was a douchebag. I just hated everybody in that comic. I mean, when Tony Stark is like the guy,
The nice guy.
the nice guy that you can relate to, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't stand it. But yeah, that's about as rebooty as Marvel has gotten. Although they're starting this new thing now, Marvel Now comics. I don't know that they had a storyline to go along with that though, like a reason.
No, it's just they just.
I think they're just like, here's something new, you know.
Yeah, and it seems like Marvel is really like the difference between Marvel and DC has always been for me is that Marvel had always been like the home of like the artists, and they always had like the flashy artists and stuff like that. And DC had like more of the writers, you know, like Denny O'Neil and Marv Wolfman and all these guys. You know, they had all these writers, but their art was, except for maybe Perez, but the art was always kind of like the same through all the DC books. But you had great artists on Batman though, like Neil Adams and Dick Giordano. Now it's some of those artists are going like over to DC, like David Finch is over at DC now, and Jim Lee's over there. But Marvel seems to be doing more. They're going with Marvel now. They're going with more indie guys working on the books. So now all the books have these weird. There's no consistent look at all to the Marvel books, and they're all kind of like you have Scott. What's his face from Madman? Scott. What's the name of Scott Allred? And he's doing. Isn't he doing like something over there? It's not Daredevil, although the Daredevil book kind of looks like his art.
Yeah, they're switching up artists midstream on their books, like the Captain Marvel books.
Oh yeah.
This is not the new there's a Marvel Now version of Captain Marvel. I mean, that got rebooted again, so they're starting over at number 1.
Right.
But it's still Kelly DeConnick that's writing it.
Right.
But yeah, if you buy the trade of the Captain Marvel series, it's like they switch artists after like 3 books.
Yeah.
And then awful. I mean, the first 3 were good, and then after that it's bad.
Yeah.
It was bad art. But I think the writing is stronger in a lot of cases now with the Marvel Now stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Thor books were fantastic. The Captain Marvel. I mean, there's a few going on right now that I think are really good.
Right.
But I haven't. Like I read the Justice League books from the New 52.
Right.
But I don't know. The rebooting of the series just doesn't excite me.
Right.
Like at all.
Well, I mean, to be honest, that first book that they did feels like it was custom made to be the Justice League movie, quote unquote, because it introduces all the characters, introduces Darkseid, and here we go.
Yeah.
You know.
And maybe that's what they're planning to do with this
Maybe that's what
Batman
they'll do.
versus Superman. Maybe that's like, just the code name they're using, but it's actually going to be Justice League, whatever, Genesis or whatever.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You never know. That would be interesting if they did that.
Yeah.
I'd like that idea better than Batman versus Superman.
Well, it's like I said. I mean, if they called it World's Finest, it wouldn't be as egregious.
I think that's a better name. Trinity would be an even better name.
Well,
right.
Anything better than Batman.
If her part in it is big enough to justify, totally, Trinity would be.
Well, they keep talking about her in the press releases whenever they're talking about Batman versus Superman,
They do. They'll talk about her and then they'll underplay it. They'll talk about her and then they'll underplay it. So, Who knows? Who knows?
We don't know.
It's too early to.
But I think we're all in agreement that is an awful name.
That's a terrible
Batman versus Superman, stupid as hell.
Yeah.
You do that for something like Aliens versus Predator, not two of the most iconic characters.
We get it. You got both their names in there.
Yeah,
congrats.
Nice going. Remember Batman? Batman's in this movie.
Right.
It's like they're panicking almost after Man of Steel, which is
crazy. Just call it Man of Steel 2 for Christ's sakes. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, that would be nice, but it's like WB has this. I don't know if it's an inferiority complex, but it's like they only have confidence in two characters.
Yeah.
And by two characters, I mean Batman and pretty much Batman.
Chris Nolan Batman and comic book Batman.
And Chris Nolan brought you Superman.
Right.
Remember Chris Nolan? He had his hand in this. I mean, that was what you heard all leading up to Man of Steel. Like Christopher Nolan's executive producer.
And it was Goyer, right? So
it was Goyer.
It was mainly Goyer, yeah.
Right.
I mean, but now,
I'm just saying,
Chris Nolan had a hand. Yeah, Chris Nolan did have a.
Sure, I was just saying Goyer worked.
Right.
And whenever WB would talk about it, it's like, and Christopher Nolan has, given the A-OK to this.
Goyer's probably sitting back there going, "Go fuck yourself."
Yeah. And I think Nolan actually poo-pooed the idea of Superman killing Zod.
He was against it at first,
and
then they showed it to him. He was like, "All right."
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what Goyer.
See, to me, that makes sense to me. Everyone hated that because he's Superman. That makes sense to me in the origin story that they set up because he doesn't know what he's dealing with.
Right.
Yeah, he doesn't know his powers. He doesn't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the situation at the end was dumb because
okay,
the family. How about you just move a little to the right?
Yeah.
Pal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you got your kids and your wife there.
One of my friends pointed out. She was like, so there's these alien attacks going on outside. What the fuck are you doing in a museum looking at art in the first place?
I thought it was like was it a museum? I thought it was a subway station or something.
It almost like I don't know what it was, but it's like what? Seriously, there's skyscrapers falling outside.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Just leisurely perusing, like in any building.
Let's hang out in the lobby a little bit. Yeah. Wait it out. Wait it out in the lobby, and then he starts shooting a laser at you, slowly moving to the right, and you're like watching it come. I can't get out of here. What do I do?
Unless I take 2 steps to the side.
Yeah, unless I just move and I go this way, because he seems to have this situation under control over here. I'll just get out.
Yeah.
But as far as just having him kill Zod, that makes sense.
Well, the biggest, I mean, I think that might be the reason why they put Zod in it in the first place, because he is of equal power to Superman. But the thing is, putting Zod in it in the first place was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they should have made it Brainiac.
Brainiac would be
great.
And then just gone from there. And it would have made it because my friend and I were talking about this last night too. Because he's like we really disagree on Man of Steel. I was like, well, but Brainiac, the whole Codex thing and all that crap, it was just like a MacGuffin to have Zod show up.
Right.
Whereas if you just made it, here's the last Kryptonian on this planet Earth. I'm Brainiac. I cataloged this shit. I'm going to blow this planet up and then take him.
This is what I do. Right?
Exactly. And it would have worked.
Yeah.
It would have worked. And that's what they should have done.
And plus it would have given us a new Superman villain.
Exactly.
So
that's what I'm saying. After all this time, why rehash a villain?
Because Zod, if I'm not mistaken, Zod was created originally for Superman, the Richard Donner movies, and then they eventually put him into the comic books.
He was in Donner movie before the comics. Yeah.
So it's like, and then you're going to rehash that guy? Fucking come on, man.
Yeah, he's got all these cool villains that they could use.
That's what I'm saying.
Toy Man, come on.
Yeah,
Mr. Mitzelplick,
the prankster, or whatever his name was.
Yeah. Superman's got a freaking army of villains that they could use, and
well, sort of.
I mean, it's.
They only use 2.
It's
Luther
the same
and Doomsday.
idea. You could say the same thing with Nolan, right? He used a Joker. It just worked really well.
Right. Well, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you can still argue that point, but with Superman, Zod is such the lesser of his, especially in the comic world, of his enemies.
Yeah.
Brainiac would have been great because Brainiac can always bring back. I mean, it's easy to sort of resurrect
a robot.
A robot.
Yeah.
But
just bring in Bizarro, man.
Bizarro.
Oh my god, that'd be awful.
But
yeah, so Batman.
Yeah.
75th anniversary.
Way to go, buddy.
Unbelievable.
Look forward to 76.
You can look forward to 76 more, probably. because they're not getting rid of him anytime soon.
No, they're not. They're not. Everybody's got their Batman story to tell. I'm sure you have a Batman story to tell.
Well, we already talked about the alphabet soup. I mean, that's my,
Genius.
that's kind of when I think of Batman, I think of Bat Thermos and
That writing was good.
shark
Oh,
spray,
God.
bat shark spray,
Oh,
shark
God.
repellent.
Shark
That's what
repellent.
it was.
Yeah.
Sprayed on that shark.
Oh,
It's a
God.
good thing I have this.
Yeah.
Right here on my bat belt.
Right here on my
you
bat.
never know when you're going to need shark
Utility
repellent.
belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one for killer whales as well.
I know, old chum. One more thing about Batman, and this is Kevin Conroy. Venture Brothers had Kevin Conroy voice this character. I forget. He was like Captain Sunshine or something like that. It was so funny, and it was like they had the whole weird Batman Robin relationship with his sidekick and stuff like that, and it was fucking hilarious. But the fact they got Kevin Conroy to voice him was perfect, and he played him. He played it like that on West.
How about this?
Nice.
Should Robin have ever existed in the Batman universe? Would Bruce Wayne?
No.
No, I don't think so.
It's true.
Well, the
If
reason
you
why they
look at
did it,
Bruce Wayne,
the reason why they did it though was because they had Superman who was like, "Hello, I'm Superman," da da da, and then they had Batman who was like, "I'm Batman." So they brought in Robin to lighten up the story a little bit.
But why do
Yeah, but he's talking about more from
Like-
Bruce Wayne's character's perspective.
I don't think Bruce Wayne would have ever.
He would have never had anyone else come in on with him. I agree with that.
I don't think he would have taken on a
Yeah, he would have had a little protege like
Yeah.
that.
A Ward.
a little ward.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like 12 or something like that. He wasn't 22 like he was in Batman Forever.
Yeah, right.
I want to adopt you. I know you're 22 years old, but I think I need to adopt you. That movie's so fucking dumb. Batman Forever, the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, Batman Forever. And then each subsequent viewing is like, this movie's awful. Tommy Lee Jones as Jack Nicholson's Joker.
Funny, because it only took me the first time.
Yeah, it
It's
didn't take me.
awful. I didn't need
two-
a second.
I got caught up in all
It's
I got caught up in all the hype for that one. I like the Batman movies, but
Clearly,
no longer those 90s movies.
no.
Ugh. But in my defense, I never did go see Batman and Robin. I saw that trailer. I was like, no.
You never saw it in theater?
No.
Oh wow.
Instead, I had my friend go see it, and I didn't have him go see it, but he went to go see it with my other friend, and then he, the next day, talked to me through the whole movie for 2 fucking hours on the phone. And so I felt like I'd seen it. Yes.
Act 1, Scene
Yes.
1.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I've seen. I don't even know if I've seen it all the way through on cable either.
Oh.
I've only seen parts of it on cable.
You're
I think
fine.
you need to
You're
see
fine.
it.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
It's god awful.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, but to be the biggest Batman fan that you claim to be, you should really sit through.
My
all
friend
that.
Jamie might be a bigger fan than I am.
Yeah, well,
He's suffered that pain.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's it. That's Batman's 75th anniversary, episode 32, Hodgepodge Podcast.
thanks for joining us, Matt.
Yep. No
Yep.
problem.
Thanks for
Anytime.
joining us. We will have Matt back again
Yeah.
when in a few weeks when we talk about his favorite character and how they've raped him in the movies.
Spider-Man.
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 Peter Spiderman. And because we're going to go see Spider-Man, the amazing Spider-Man 2.
Dose.
And we're going to see if it's amazing. Something tells
Yeah.
me.
Bad.
Spoiler alert, probably not.
Spoiler alert, probably not. You can probably catch the whole movie online right now because with all the clips
Yeah,
they've
I think if you
released,
just put together all the clips,
you've got the movie.
that's like the
Yeah.
first at least hour and a half of that movie.
Oh my god.
Pretty
Yeah.
sure he catches something with his feet.
He does catch something with feet, and he also yanks a full coffee cup across the hallway without spilling a drop.
Any of it. Amazing.
Without,
He's spider senses.
he does, yeah.
If you look at his feet in one scene, there's no way that they can bend in that outfit. And then the next scene, they just got perfect agility in those feet to grab whatever he's grabbing. So, whoop!
Because he's wearing Nikes on. He's
Yeah.
got Nikes on, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I can't wait.
Air Parkers.
Air Parkers. Nice. Hey, let's make the Amazing Spider-Man 1. What should we do? Just take the first Spider-Man movie and put in a new villain. Yay! But he's really the same villain.
Yeah, we'll keep the same one.
Just change his name. And so we'll see you next time, folks.
See ya.